That's the depth of the information I have.
Yeah, I cannot understand any of that.
And Rebecca actually mentioned she knows something she wants to bring on, so.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Okay.
I just have a small update
Okay.
regarding one of the trusts.
Okay.
Looks like we were making 5% or something, so seems good.
I've been hungry for the grilled cheese.
All right, so it being 5 p.m. on the 9th of November 2023, this meeting of the Hillsdale Community Library Board of Trustees is called to order. Roll call, all trustees present, and today we also welcome our new director, Rachel Dobson. Our next item is the approval of the agenda. Do any board members wish to modify the agenda in any way? Yes, Trustee Hill.
I would like under communications, I had received a communication from the Friends of the Library last night, so I'd like to add that, unless Linda, you were planning on reading her
You're
notes?
good.
Okay, I didn't want to take away from you
No,
what you
you're
did,
good.
that was gonna be under visitor comments, thank you.
So I hear a motion to add a communication from the Friends of the Library under communications. Do I hear a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any other amendments to the agenda?
Sorry.
Yeah, Trustee
I would-
Stockman?
Like to add to new business, a discussion about creating and implementing a code of ethics for the board.
Under new business,
So
thank
that
you.
would be B.
Are you suggesting that under the bylaws, so it should be under the bylaw discussion or under new business, or should it be under old?
So I've seen it done both ways,
Okay.
where, should we second first and then discuss?
Yes, let's
Oh,
hear a
sorry.
second. Okay, discussion.
So in my research of library boards adopting a code of ethics, I've seen it done both ways. Adopted under the bylaws or adopted just as a separate second document in which governs the board. So I am not going to object to putting it in new business or putting it under the bylaws discussion. I would just like to have a discussion.
Anyone have anything to add? We do need to decide where to put it. I myself would prefer to consider that as a separate item under new business. I would prefer to look at the currently proposed revised bylaws as they stand without mixing it up with any extra discussion of things that might be tacked onto that. And I do think this question of a statement of ethics is something to be considered and looked at kind of on its own merits. Yes?
So
Trustee
under that same level of thinking, if we're gonna look at something new to potentially add to the bylaws, and also given that we have a new director, I would suggest that out of respect for the new library director, we table the vote on the bylaws until the next meeting, until she has a chance to fully review them, and she just started her job this week, has a lot to be reviewing and getting up to speed on, and just out of courtesy to her, and also taking into consideration obviously her master's in library science and her knowledge of bylaws, that perhaps we should wait.
Thank you. And we might consider discussion of that in other amendments of the agenda, but right now we're just discussing Stephanie's proposal regarding the code of ethics. So, do we have, let's see, we had a motion, we had a second, but when you made the motion, did you say whether or not you wanted to add it under?
I did say new business.
All right, so that's the motion under discussion. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So
Alright.
then I would make a motion, if it's a separate item, to respectfully ask that, out of respect for our new library director, we table the vote on the bylaws until next time, until she's had a chance to review them, and also at that point, we'll have more information about the code of ethics being added as recommended by Stephanie, or whatever the outcome of tonight's meeting on that item is. It doesn't make sense to me to approve bylaws and then right away the next meeting make an addition or a change. I think we adopt them all at once.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Palladino?
Clarification, an item on the agenda is tabled when no motion is taken. So that is technically, you're motioning to remove it from the agenda, so there will be no discussion on it.
I was just motioning that we wait on voting on it.
Okay, then that, I believe, has to be done when we get to it, and then we can vote to just table it and take no action on the actual,
Right, because,
on the
right,
point itself.
thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for
My
clarifying.
understanding is, forgive me.
No, I was just saying, thanks for clarifying that.
My understanding is that, of course, at this point, while we're simply amending the agenda, we're deciding what is and is not on the agenda. If we wish to postpone voting on any particular matter, that decision should probably come when we get to that point of discussion, if something has remained on the agenda.
Unless we just want to take it off altogether.
Right, exactly. So I don't think at this point we can decide ahead of time in the approval of the agenda that we're not going to vote on something, only whether or not something is on the agenda at all.
The motion is to table, though,
Okay.
which technically.
Well, I guess I'm confused because even though your agenda does not say voting on the bylaws, your Gmail said that we would be voting on it tonight. So I'm sorry if I've confused those two issues.
But again, let's revisit the motion because you've made the motion, it's been seconded. But as a point of order, I think we have to clarify that I don't think we can decide while we're approving the agenda not to vote on something ahead of time. We can only decide whether or not something is on the agenda.
Right.
So I think the motion, the motion doesn't work just as a point of order.
Okay.
Unless you would wish to withdraw it and we propose it as a motion to withdraw the item from the agenda altogether. We're still under discussion of the motion.
Sorry.
A little confusing.
Welcome, Rachel.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All right, well, I'll call for a vote. I'm not sure that, procedurally, whether or not we could implement simply tabling, voting on a motion in the approval of the agenda, but I'll call for a vote anyway. Any in favor? Seeing none, any opposed? The motion is made. Nay?
I think we're all confused.
All right, so I believe the motion fails for lack of a vote. We'll say that, for lack of a majority vote. All right, is there any further proposed amendment to the agenda as presented? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the item under communications and the item under new business already approved.
So moved.
So second.
Sorry, Josh moves it, Stephanie seconds?
Sure.
Okay.
I think we spoke at the same time, so.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye, all in favor, thank you. Next, we have the approval of the meeting minutes of last month. We've all seen these. They've been shared with everybody. Somehow I very cleverly managed to print everything except those in your packets. So, but we've all seen them. Does anybody recall any item? And I do have them in front of me if anyone has an item they wish to address. Thank you, Trustee Hill.
I just said, under, when we were talking about the bylaws, the minutes currently state, the board discussed several points of the proposed bylaws, but it doesn't note any of our key points, and I think it should be amended to add. Hill recommended under the conflict of interest, personal or political, should be added to financial conflicts. Stockford also felt we needed to be specific about conflict of interest and that an ethics statement should be considered. And under presidential responsibilities, Hill stated that the director prepares the agenda, and I cited that city board meetings such as EPU, ZBA, and EDC, the director prepares the agenda, not the president of the board. And I further added that the procedures followed by the community level institutions such as Community Foundation and Hillsdale. And I typed that up so that I could give it to you so you didn't have to rewrite all that.
All right,
I
so,
think that it's important to have that discussion item, so it looks like we weren't in complete agreement with what was proposed at the time, or presented. Otherwise, it looks like there was discussion, but not any recommendations for change.
all right. That's a motion to amend the minutes of the previous meeting with the details as presented by, trustee Hill to the secretary. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I'll jump in and say that while a certain degree of detail is certainly necessary and desirable in the minutes are not obligated to detail every single point that's made or everything everybody says. The most important thing, of course, is to record formal decisions made, including motions, second, vote taken. I do not want the secretary to feel obligated to record every argument made by every member of the board about every item. And therefore, I believe that simply pointing out discussion took place about various items is sufficient for the minutes, nor do I, again, wish the secretary to feel obligated to repeat every argument made, only the basics of what was discussed, what was voted on, and what formal decisions were made.
If that is true, then I would think that board comments would not follow that, what you're saying, because board comments do not have a vote or a motion made. And I also still think that that's basically censorship when there is discussion, and it wasn't just discussion of adding in, it was like clear points of difference. So if that's not expressed, then discussion makes it sounds like it was an agreeable discussion versus if there were some recommendations made.
I mean, respectfully, I disagree that saying discussion implies that we all agree. Because the nature of a board is to agree and disagree in any discussion. I have to agree that it becomes complicated to try to record nuance of argument, and I seek to fulfill the Open Meetings Act requirements, mainly in, as George was saying, detailing motions made, votes cast, and that we had discussion. I mean, just as you say, discussion seems to imply agreement, I think discussion could also imply disagreement, since we didn't come to a decision.
So could we agree to change it to several recommendations were made? Or modifications were recommended?
Because it currently says what, George?
It currently says, the board discussed several points of the proposed bylaws, including 1.5, 2.8, 3.5, 4.2, and 7.2.
Right.
Yes, trustee Palladino, thank you.
That to me seems like suggestions would have been made, otherwise why would we have brought them up? But my only concern about this is just that we have a policy, because I know we've gone back and forth, and even before you were here, I would record very detailed notes, and then we'd scrap them, and other days I would record less detailed notes, and we'd say, no, we need more. It would just be good to get like policy discussion. I could see the argument that you want more detailed notes when it's about policy. But you know, when I was writing
But I think,
visitor comments or something
Visitor
like that, it
comments
was
are
like,
different.
okay, well, this is also a discussion and the public is giving their opinion,
Right.
but do we wanna write that down in detail? So I could go either way, we need to establish exactly what types of discussions we want the broader, all the points, captured by the minutes, and when we think that, we can just sort of have the motion and the vote.
I think the distinction, like you said, is visitor comments kind of got lengthy when we had 40 people speaking at a meeting. And that's where the difference was, but board comments, I think, or board input is people.
I will say for myself, I think I agree with the secretary's judgment about what is and is not sufficient detail when it comes to reporting what was discussed. And moving forward, of course, it's continually a question of just how much is required to be in the minutes. My inclination at this point is to accept the minutes as presented. And that's the last I'll say about that. Any further discussion on this item? Yes, trustee Stopford.
This is just kind of a squeaky one for me. I come from the land of if it's not written down in documentation, it did not happen. So I would err on the side, personally, my support would go towards erring on the side of a very brief synopsis. And you see that in the city council, in their minutes, there is a very brief synopsis. It's not word for word, you know, I'm not asking you to tape record, by no means. But just a brief synopsis of what is being said. And I think that that would be fair too, if we're having visitor comments as well. Some of, you know, I understand sometimes there are things that are brought up in visitor comments that maybe don't necessarily feel like they need to be recorded, but other times it is important issues and it should be noted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just say in the new minutes, I don't think there's anything in the old minutes. But,
Okay,
or,
in the
excuse
new
me,
bylaw.
in the old bylaws.
Yeah.
A true and accurate account of all proceedings.
Mhm.
Maybe we don't wanna be that specific in the bylaws, but maybe in the policy manual, we could say, cause Robert's rules is, you know, motion, vote, that's all you need, and a date on the thing, basically. So,
That's
some
Open
future date, we
Meetings
should,
Act as well.
what's that?
That's Open Meetings Act as well.
Yes, they are consistent, yeah, that's right.
Any further discussion of the motion to amend the minutes put forward by trustee Hill? Seeing no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of making the amendment proposed?
I'll vote in favor.
I'll go along with it as well then.
Thank you.
Josh?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Whichever way the secretary wants.
Unanimous.
Yeah, no, yep.
I'll go along with the secretary's vote in this case. All right, thank you. Are there any further proposed changes to the minutes? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the proposed amendment implemented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes. The next item on our agenda is visitor comments. If any of our visitors wish to speak, they may stand up and do so. You have 3 minutes to speak, and please introduce yourself for the record.
Patty Swan. Mr. Palladino, at the last month's meeting, you abstained from voting on the minutes because you weren't at the previous meeting. Well, that's actually a city code violation. You can only abstain when you have a personal financial gain involved with the vote. It's interesting that you've been at missed city council meetings, but at the next meeting, you go ahead and vote on the minutes. So there you decide to go along with it. Here you made an issue of it. The next thing is, as an elected city council member, I would expect you to know city codes that you are supposed to uphold and know. You are hardly an ignorant man, and so let's read, learn, and follow city charter and codes. My second comment would be about the minutes. There was discussion about the bylaw changes, but in the minutes, there wasn't anything about Karen or Stephanie's suggestions. That is the discussion there seems wrong. These are important changes in the bylaws. We need a historical document, which your minutes are, because people go back years and years and years and look at minutes to see what transpired. So that's important. I was on the planning commission and I've taken minutes for 2 years, and it's important in the planning commission to be able to go back and look at what transpired. So I agree, Stephanie and Karen's suggestions should be in the minutes. The other thing about the minutes, I'm also noticing there's never any list of the public that have attended the meetings. If you look at every other board and council minutes, there's always a list of what public was present in the meetings. So I would suggest you implement that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from any of our other visitors?
I'm Father Stephen Allen. I just wanted to say we want to welcome our new director. Very happy to have her here. And I want to thank the board, especially those who worked hard on these bylaws. And I trust that all the decisions will be made based on good governance and rationality, and not on personal agendas, not on personal political ambitions or agendas, or dead sentiment or inertia of dead habit, or shaking bottles. So thank you very much. We welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from any of our other visitors? Thank you. Moving on to our revenue and expenditure report. You should see in the next item of your packet our revenue and expenditure report from the City of Hillsdale for the library, period ending October 31st of this year. Are there any questions or comments regarding our revenues and expenditures that we could take back to the city? Give everyone a minute. All I can say is that nothing in particular caught my eye this month, although of course we can always ask questions.
It looks like contributions and donations are up and almost double what we budgeted for, which is a really good sign. I think that has shown that our community has really supported our library through some kind of tough times and some ups and downs, but I think our patrons truly do support us, and I would like to thank them publicly for that.
Thank you. Any other board question or comment? All right. Seeing none, the next piece of information before us is the library fund report. This latest report shows our total assets at $440,865.72. Total liabilities, $3,291.58. Total fund balance, $263,628.49, and final total liabilities and fund balance, $440,865.72. Is there any questions or discussion regarding the library fund?
I would just like to add,
Thank you.
so we have a couple of trusts, and I recently was talking with someone from County National Bank. We have a trust, I believe it's Edward L. Kunesh, I did not write his middle initial. But this trust essentially and this is the piece of mail that we opened together, that is actually not personal business.
Oh,
Yep, so that's what this is for. So this specific trust, a gentleman passed away and he decided to leave 10% to the library. They recently were having an auction of, I think, the entire estate as well as all of his farm equipment. They are somewhere in the upwards of $3 million of all of the money they gained from this. So like I said, we're getting 10%. Now, after all of the court fees, lawyer fees, all of that sort of stuff gets paid out, the person at County National Bank said they are conservatively expecting that we will get paid around $415,000 just from that specific trust. And she expects that to be paid out by the year end. I guess who knows, that just depends on how the court is going to proceed. And she would like to sit down with somebody, and she would like to know some specifics of if we get the money paid to us specifically, or I should say to the library specifically, or to the city, since the city does kind of do some of our finances. I assume it would be the library since he left it to the library. But that's about it. So we should
Could you
be,
repeat the name again? Edward?
yes. I believe the middle initial is L, but it is Edward Kunesh, and the last name is spelled Kunesh.
Do you know, is he from Hillsdale?
So
Do we know anything
that
about this gentleman?
I don't think he was, I don't know, because when I looked into this, it's all based in Tecumseh, which is, doesn't seem super close here. Now, maybe that's just where, maybe, I'm assuming the farmhouse had to have been between here and there, but I don't know, I didn't get that specifically.
Okay,
for you.
He died last year in Litchfield,
Yes,
it was
sorry.
like, and he was from Defiance.
That's a conservative number. It could fluctuate, but the woman, she said,
No one knows that,
somewhere in
what
that
did we do
area.
to
I
deserve
don't
that?
recognize
Yes.
it.
That's not a name that I recognize
I
at
will check
all.
with my husband. He back there. He said-
We also do have 2 other trusts, but the account manager is different from this one for whatever reason, and he never got in contact with me yet, so. This one does just seem to be a little bit more pressing, cause she said year end, so
wow,
we could be getting some money sometime soon.
some.
Yes.
Wow. What
That's
are the
incredible.
names of the other 2 trusts? I forget what there is. One?
The other one I know, it's, the last name is Gardner. I can't remember, there's Harold, and I don't remember the wife. It might be Linda, but do not quote me to that. Last name is for sure Gardner, though. And that one, I believe we might be getting, based on all the things that were left in the files for it, we might get a yearly payment from it as opposed to one big disbursement. But I didn't hear from the gentleman, so I don't know the specifics of that one just yet. That's all.
That's all.
What's the Calder Trust or is that something different?
Harold
The
and
Calder
Lester?
Fund. Do you remember the Calder Fund? Was that one of the trusts we had? I don't remember that name.
It does seem vague, like, I wanna say we might, because in the files back there are 3 trusts. There's the Kunesh, Gardner, and there's one more, but it has very little in it, so I haven't really looked at it. There's just, it pales in comparison to the other 2.
May I ask, who have you been in contact about the Kanesh Trust? And the
Um,
business of it?
Her name is Joanne Bowman,
B-O-W?
Bowman.
And she's the one responsible for the trust?
This one specifically.
Okay.
Is that-
And is she waiting for more information from us?
Nope, well, I guess technically she does want to know what our plans with the money would be. If we would like to keep it there to invest it there and let it grow. I believe, based on the conversation, she would as a bank employee, she would prefer that just to see the number grow.
Mhm.
But mainly it was just between her questions were, would the money go to the city or to us directly, and what we would like to do with the money, where we would like to place it if it comes to us.
Okay.
So that's,
And this is county national?
mhm. I believe all of our
All of our
trusts.
funds and donations and things go through the
Yes.
city. Yeah, and they would also give us financial advice.
Okay.
In terms of investments and disbursement or what maintenance things we might wanna think of our
This
game
is,
on.
CNB too?
Our,
County national.
yeah,
This,
our,
current one, the fund report,
the library fund is deposited with CNB.
is that what we're saying?
I don't actually, I'm not actually certain.
I
That's probably
believe-
something we should ascertain.
I was gonna say, if you're referring to this
Yes.
specifically.
Right,
I met with Tina today, and I
Okay.
believe she was saying that the library doesn't really have a relation with County National Bank aside from the trusts. Apparently we do most of our banking through Southern
Southern
Michigan,
Michigan.
Southern Michigan banking.
What the suite is.
And that's what she's, we don't really have a relation with them aside from the trust, but even that, she didn't consider a relation, which I'm not sure, but.
Okay, yeah, I thought she said this was in some sort of Michigan local government fund.
That might have
In that
been,
email?
yeah, regarding the investments.
Okay, either way, wow.
Yes.
All right, Rebecca, glad to have you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank
Came at the right time.
Yes. And regarding the management of funds donated to the library, including from trusts, my impression is that the city financial staff manage all the finances, including the library's finances. So someone writes a check to the library, we take it to the city finance person, they deposit it, but all of our accounts for all of our expenses are separate and under our authority. So while city finance people manage it, it goes into one pot, and that's the library pot, that nobody else can use. So they are kept separate from the rest of the city's finances. That's my understanding. I would think it prudent in the near future to potentially form a committee for making financial decisions regarding particularly this incredible windfall. But also more generally, I think it might be prudent because we'll get to this down the line, because we will be discussing staff salaries. We wanted to discuss the general fund and in particular our investments. If we form a standing budgetary committee of perhaps 2 board members plus the director to take the time to dig into the details of these things and come up with recommendations to bring to the full board. So I think that's potentially, the appointment of such a committee may potentially be something we'd want to discuss next month. So I'll just raise the specter of that. Any other discussion or questions from the board? Trustee Hill?
Just related to the same thing, do we have information about this gentleman's background and family that we could write thank you notes to or anything, or do some public accommodate?
So I will say, when I was calling to figure information about that, that's what I wanted to know, but she got back to me instead with the number, with the 400, whatever. I do not know enough about that story. It kind of seems as though, maybe I shouldn't continue, I don't know, unfortunately.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, I guess we'll move on to the circulation report. As with the previous months in our interim period without a director, I went ahead and just ran the raw numbers this is just straight from the system without any arrangement or making it look pretty. I trust that our new director will in the future do a better job of presenting this raw data than I have. But the data is now here, it is part of the public record, and it is available for our purviewing. Did anyone in looking forward and in looking through these reports have any questions regarding circulation activity for October, either by item location or material type?
Looks like children's books really increased in circulation. It's a good thing to see. As well as fiction.
Do we normally get all of these categories?
No, typically in the past, the director has consolidated this data into a much more digestible form.
Just basically checkouts?
Yeah, this is,
Okay.
as I said, if you run it straight out of the system, this is what it gives you. So it gives you a sense of how much work the director does to prepare the reports from the raw data.
So, forgive me if I'm wrong, remember when Jessica brought to our attention the circulation numbers, these just look like they really jumped a lot?
Mhm.
Remember when Jessica brought to our attention that books were double checked into
Yes.
the system?
Yes, and that was
so the
inflating
numbers were
circulation number.
inflated, so is this taking that into consideration or not?
I don't know. My impression is that they fixed their processes so that the second check-in was not inflating circulation numbers, not that she was running the report and then having the number.
Okay,
But I unfortunately, I don't
Okay.
know. So that might be a question the director could potentially take to the staff and examine.
we can talk more about it later, but
Okay,
there was a process where things were double checked because of different systems.
okay.
And so, and it wasn't just our last director, it happened like the past two directors, and the most recent one caught that error
Okay,
and warned us that the numbers might start looking different
okay.
moving forward, and it wasn't a change in anything, but the way they were auditing it, and so when these numbers look so high, I kinda wondered if there was a reversal and those numbers weren't reconfigured.
So that might be a question to take back to the staff, ask, after this was discovered, were check-in procedures changed? And there should be a way to figure out in the system, if you check something in and then beep it in again, is that inflating the check-in numbers?
Okay.
Yeah.
And are we, you guys are looking at this very bottom, not this top, the very
Um,
bottom total?
Circ activity, so, totals at the bottom, yeah, through the library, through ILL, total, yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure
Mhm.
that was, although they look the same.
Any other questions or comments regarding the circulation activity report for October? Thank you. Seeing none, we will move on to the director's report. The director, having just joined us, just started Monday. I am not going to press her to answer questions about programming or these other stats from October.
And she already brought us joyful news.
Yes,
We're not
yeah.
That was
Christmas came early.
As far as I'm concerned, she's done her work for the evening. But are there any questions that arise from these stats that we would like the director to take back to potentially the staff? Or any comments from board members regarding program stats and then this other miscellaneous data in the agenda?
Were the Halloween stats on here? Oh.
Yep.
Oh, good. Yeah, it was great to see the Halloween event be so successful. I just wanted to say, I was gonna be under board comments, but since it's under programming, I'll say it now. Heidi did a magnificent job coordinating the trick or treat event. We had 323 people come through by door count and by Heidi's count on the way in. Kids stayed for quite a while. Some of them sat down with Laura and enjoyed and colored. Some played games, some went to different stations. Heidi had a really cute photo booth kind of thing set up with hay and a background with the library logo on the back, so that was kind of fun if parents posted those later. So thanks to all and Stephanie volunteered as well, and you brought your baby. I miss seeing you because we were so busy in here with cider and donuts. I was pouring and passing out donuts as fast as I could. So it was a really successful event, so thanks to all who donated and who volunteered. It was great.
Thank
And all the people who came. It was a snowy night, so I think people thought it was nice and warm to come in here.
Yeah. living in town, I had probably 15 trick-or-treaters at my house.
Mhm.
So coming from this to 15 was quite the change. So I think more people chose us than the traditional trick-or-treating.
Chilling.
How in Blue Hall Street, there were hundreds and hundreds that came down Hall Street, so factor that in.
I remember trick-or-treating in my neighborhood when I was a kid.
Someone came in and never left.
Where?
Yes, so,
The half-
forgive me,
Half
yes,
a door count. either-
trustee Palladino has pointed out we got a door count of 26.116.5
Yeah.
somehow.
Toddlers.
So we might revisit that data, that didn't catch my eye at first.
The lady who was 4.5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments, from any board member regarding program stats, door count, reference questions, Facebook hits, Instagram hits?
Heidi's done a great job with Facebook, and I was just gonna add, just as a reminder, she put a really cool Facebook post on about donation barrel in the lobby or the entryway for non-perishable foods with the plan of donating it to Salvation Army. So I thought that was a great community connection and liaison.
Thank you.
I didn't know if anyone had seen that Facebook post, but that was a nice idea.
Thank you. Further comments? Very good. Seeing none, we'll move on to communications, under which we have one item.
Okay, this was from, Bree Kroll Jager, who is the president of the Friends Group, and we have Linda Wagner here from that group. This was from their October meeting, and she says, unfortunately, we received paperwork that we have lost our tax exempt status from not filing taxes for the past 3 years. I reached out to a previous president, and they were unaware this was something that needed to happen. I have contacted the local accountant to help with this. It appears to be a quick fix, but one that I want to make sure is done correctly. So apparently, forms were not filled out each year like they were supposed to be, and I think that goes back to 2 directors previously, and then that person from the Friends Group. And for a while, the group kind of had disbanded a little bit, and Bree and Tara and Linda and several others have really brought it up, so it's a very robust group, and they've been accomplishing quite a bit. So this is a little bit of a setback, and it was nothing this new group did, it's paperwork that happened under the previous group. And again, it was not anyone's malicious attempt, I think it was an oversight where people didn't understand some of the paperwork that needed to be completed. And then our next point is, we had someone interested in being an intern with us for our social media, but with some deadlines, she decided to intern elsewhere, but she's still gonna do some designing informally. And she already sent in a mock-up of my first library card, like an Instagram that kids would hold when they got up their first library card. And so the group voted at the last meeting to make a few changes. She's gonna revise them, and then they'll have a final draft at their November meeting. Our report was filed with Laura, which is Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, and was accepted. And they voted on a couple designs for canvas bag fundraisers, put them on Facebook, and those will be available pretty soon. They were gonna do a purchase order of 100 in bulk to sell it at the library for a profit, and they would donate that to us. So that was good. And then I think I saw that the next meeting should be next week, but they're gonna
It's
wait till the
Thanksgiving,
following
right.
week, correct? So it's, do you know the date for that? She didn't put it in this, but I think because of the way the holiday is falling, they're switching it.
I think it's Tuesday, but I won't swear to that,
Okay,
after Thanksgiving.
okay. I think she posted something on Facebook and it wasn't in this report, and I neglected to write it down, so I apologize. So anyway, it's usually the week following our board meeting, and that's different this week,
Because
or
Thanksgiving.
next week.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was from Bree, so thank you.
Karen, would you mind forwarding that to my email?
Sure. If I can figure that out.
In fact, you'd probably better pass it along to the full board, so
Okay,
we all see it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion regarding that item? All right, seeing none, move on to old business. First of all, our new director hire. We are joined this evening by Rebecca Dobsky. Welcome, Rebecca. Most recently of Brandon Township Public Library in Ortonville, currently working on her Masters of Library and Information Science at Wayne State, where I also got my MLIS. And I believe your, the completion of your program is imminent?
Within the month.
No.
Yes,
Congratulations.
yes, I'm almost done. Yeah, I'm almost done, thankfully.
Excellent.
Yes.
That being,
You wanna tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah,
Just for
please.
the-
Yeah,
I did an
yeah.
interview, but for the benefit of our
Yes.
guests.
Yes, so before getting my master's in library science, I got an associate's in history, and then I moved to MSU and I got a bachelor's in anthropology, at which point I realized the job market was tough. Also that my mom, she is a librarian, and so she had been sending me a lot of librarian positions, and it kind of re-sparked my interest. I used to volunteer at her library when I was younger as well, doing who knows what, just being there, I guess. And then I accepted my first position in East Lansing in a library, discovered I loved it, wanted to really continue it for my whole career. Started getting my master's at Wayne State, which is, I think, pretty much common for most people in Michigan. That's where they go for Wayne State, or to Wayne State. I used to have a specialization in archives, but I dropped it. I really do like it, but it fell off. So now I'm, like I just said, almost done with my master's. I will be done within the month, or within the next month, and then I will be full out of school and continuing to be coming here. So,
wonderful. Thank you very much. Any other comments or discussion from the board? All right, great. So our next item under old business is the Dollar General Youth Literacy Grant. We have used the $2,000 from that grant to purchase literacy backpacks, which we've discussed at previous meetings. They are here, they are ready for circulation. I believe there are still some decisions to be made regarding fines for lost pieces, the checkout periods, those details. So up to this point, Trustee Hill and I formed a subcommittee to assist the staff with making decisions about those acquisitions, processes leading up to the entrance of the new director. However, with the director on board, I'm happy to dissolve that committee and pass those decisions along to her, as that's more properly her purview. So I'll introduce the motion that the committee declare its work done and be dissolved. Do I hear a second? Okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, seeing none opposed, that committee's work is concluded. Thank you.
Have you gotten them?
Yes, they're here.
Oh, they're here.
Yeah.
They're really cute, they're well done, I've looked at several of them, and they have a laminated sheet inside with all the contents. The only thing it didn't have that Heidi was hopeful for was a replacement price for individual items. I think another library that I checked with, they have like a column that just says if a certain items return, the backpacks return and certain items are missing, this is a replacement value. Just so people know what they're getting into. We know the price of each total backpack, but not an individual price for certain items, if certain items were broken or lost, and so that was like the one little thing that hasn't been resolved, but, and some of the items probably could be found just on the market, the regular board books or little science equipments or puzzles. A couple of them are listed, done puzzles that go with the theme, and so I think they're items we could find easily, but we just don't have price points for that. If that's something you wish to pursue, or I know Heidi was working on some of that.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier this week, and, I think one of the biggest things too is trying to figure out a place where to put them. In here, there just really isn't a lot of empty space, aside from the leveled readers that come from the school. But I believe we were talking about it, we might, just put them up, maybe like one, aside from having all of the books, all of the picture books, maybe doing one every other, so it's picture book backpack, or just completely replacing all of the books, but I don't think we should do that either. So, still just trying to figure out where to put them.
Oh, and the other thing she mentioned was trying to come up with some little system to like secure it, so that if a child had pulled one down and played with it and didn't get it back in the backpack, and another parent unwittingly checked it out and assumed it was complete, and then they wouldn't get charged for something that someone else had already taken out. So she was trying to figure out some little secure system for that.
I found randomly today some zip ties in our supply cabinet,
Perfect.
and I tested one out and it worked fine. I don't know if that's gonna be the choice, but we at least have one option on the table for that.
Further questions or comments from the board? All right. And the reporting for that grant, I believe, is due in May. With the goal, in the application, the goal we said was 100 checkouts by the time we get to May. So if you haven't reviewed the paperwork, the grant filing and so forth, that'll be something to check out.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Great. All right, so under C, building issues. I put this on the agenda because Laura Sargent reached out to me at the beginning of the month to say that she spoke with Jason and DPS, and she says he advised that the exterior doors will need to be replaced in the next few years. She says there are around $2,000 for each door to be installed. Can you please make sure they are budgeted for in the future? They did repairs, but he said the rust is getting the best of them. So I got back to her and said I'd bring it to the board's attention at this meeting, and that certainly we could look into budgeting for it starting in the next fiscal year. I also followed up to her with some questions. How many doors are we talking about total? What are we counting as a distinct door, basically? How many individual units do we mean when we say 2,000 per? Is there any more urgent than the others? How would this need to be spaced out? Who would be doing the work? And once we okay a job, how long would each replacement take? So the details on, what exactly needs to be done, when, by whom, etc. She said she'd pass it along to Jason to answer these questions. That was 3 days ago. I haven't received further details, but it's just something to bring to the board's attention as we're being recommended to start budgeting for it probably next year, per DPS's judgment of the condition of the building.
And at that same time, will we be entertaining the idea that was brought up before, I think, about a different lock system?
Yes, I was just thinking about that earlier, that I wanted
That would go
to,
in tandem with that
yeah,
worked.
that would be the opportune time to pursue that as well if we were interested. Though we haven't seen a paper proposal of what exactly would be done, and I would like to see that at some point, of course. All right, so that's just something to bring to the board's attention at this point. There's no action to be taken until we're considering the budget for the next fiscal year. Are there any comments or questions from board members, aside from those I've already asked and have been passed along to Jason, the DPS? Any other questions we might have for the city about this? All right. Seeing none, the next item of old business is the proposed revisions to the bylaws. These were composed and worked on by myself and the secretary as a subcommittee. I ran them by the city attorney, who said everything looked good to him. He suggested a couple of changes, which I did make before I brought to the attention of the full board. Brought it up to the full board last month, but did not pursue a vote on the matter. I would like to propose a motion to accept the bylaws as presented at this meeting, and I am willing to hear a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
You're gonna add ethics,
No, we're adding that at new business.
Oh, okay. I guess my comments were under ethics as well. I don't know, I guess part of mine, and I know I brought this up the last time with the presidential responsibilities, I thought were a little bit heavy-handed. And I looked at our Michigan Library Trustee Manual, which does say the board should be careful to respect the management function of the library director. While the board establishes policy and approves major decision, it does not assume the role of the library manager. That job is delegated to the library director hired by the board. To ensure the best library service, the director must be allowed to manage the library without inappropriate board interference. And some of those type of comments were in here in terms of, the library director doing the agendas and those kind of things. That it leaves the actual administration to the library, to the director, and the, anyway, those were just some of my comments about wanting to have a little bit less directorship or, control or heavy-handed presidential responsibility. Also noted in the Michigan Library Trustee Manual is that the board secretary should not be taking the minutes of the board meeting. This activity effectively removes them from participating in the meeting. That a staff member, not the director, should take minutes except for closed sessions. I know that's not Robert's Rules of Order, but that's recommended, and especially on a board with 5 people, when one person is busy taking notes, the point is that they're not effectively interacting in the meeting, according to this. I know that's been brought up before, and at the point, I think, even done under Mary Hill's time, we talked about that, and Mary said that would be a budget item, because that would be paying a staff member for coming in an extra hour or two. Then when there were some other issues before, a staff member was asked to take minutes, and they felt uncomfortable doing so.
Yes.
So, but that's just, I wanted to bring that up in terms of what the Michigan Library Trustee rules and regulations are, or suggestions under trustee responsibilities. So just food for thought.
Just to be clear, Karen, are you, so about the comments about presidential duties, you feel that the president explanation as written is overly heavy-handed compared to the manual? Is that what you're expressing?
I just felt like when we look at presidential responsibilities as presented, which, I should look at them in front of me, it just seemed like there was a lot of responsibility on the president, and some of it I felt was actually the duty of the director. But
Specifically,
which item was that?
4.2.
Under officers.
I want to make sure I,
Am I looking at the initial one or the
well,
second?
no, because I'm still waiting to hear what exactly.
The one that you had before, I'm not looking at this one now, was talking about, which version am I looking at here? Is this which is the most updated? Because we had the,
Yeah, the draft of the proposed revised bylaws, there should only be one document. So the previous bylaws is the single page document that just says library board bylaws at the top. The proposed revised version is the multi-page document. The duties of the officers is under Article 4.
I think the confusion is coming from the fact that it says last revised October,
Right,
and my brain immediately.
right.
okay.
But
So-
because we did adopt changes
Yes.
to the current bylaws at our last
Oh,
meeting.
Sure.
That's why it says that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But didn't it say before about comparing the agenda and the,
Yeah, that's in the middle of 4.2.
4.2.
She'll call the
Yeah.
regular meetings and she'll prepare the meeting agendas.
All right. Further comments or questions? Stephanie?
My question would be, and I'm not opposed to having a discussion about having somebody else take notes, because I do
Mhm.
very much
Yeah.
see that argument.
Mhm.
After we said, Laura, take more notes, now we're like, let's find somebody else to take some notes. But you mentioned that a staff member at one point in time felt uncomfortable doing so. Do you know their reasoning? Like, uncomfortable is a very broad term. So,
I think that's when there was some division amongst the board, and they just, in fact, one staff member told me that they didn't feel comfortable even coming to our board meetings anymore.
okay.
They felt threatened,
All right.
so.
Further comments? Yes.
Yeah, on both
Trustee
points, I'll
Palladino.
say, once again, it's fine, I think, for the secretary to delegate it like we do at council. We ask a staff member, or we could delegate the meeting preparation to the library director, but I think just by the nature of the, division of authority, it has to be either in the president or the secretary hands to prepare the agenda. Because if it says that the library director does it, and then we don't have a director, we have to vote on the bylaws to change them before we can actually do anything.
As I've expressed before, and obviously, these revised bylaws were largely my preparation, so it's obvious what my opinion is. I do believe that the preparation of the agenda as part of the administration, not of the library itself and its day-to-day operations, but the administration of the business of the board, should properly belong to the board officers. And if the director or any member of the staff is asked to perform any function, such as the preparation of the agenda, the printing of the agenda, the taking of the minutes, etc., that should be something the board chooses to delegate, but that ultimate authority and responsibility for all matters of the administration of the business of the board itself should belong to the board and its officers. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will open this to a vote to adopt these revised bylaws for the Hillsdale Community Library Board of Trustees as presented. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Thank you. That motion passes. All right. I will ask our secretary to please coordinate with the director and the city to make sure that these revised bylaws are duly posted to the appropriate places on our website. Pertinent to that question, Rachel, do you have access to, have you gotten comfortable with the website yet, uploading documents, changing things?
I know that I have access to it. I have not actively logged into it and made any edits to it. Partially because I don't wanna log in and accidentally delete something on my first week. So
Understand.
on my second week, I'm willing to take on that risk. So, I just needed to get the first week out of the way. But like I said, I can get in there, I can work on that, getting it posted there.
And Heidi recently made changes. We made some revisions to the previously existing bylaws that we sent to Heidi, and she got those up on the website. Now, the bylaws are actually in two places on the website. They're posted on their own, and they're also embedded in the policy manual. So someone's gonna have to do a little PDF editing, and stick them into the policy manual where they go in that document as well.
I don't know that I have a PDF version of this.
Okay.
So
We'll make sure to
just
get
send
you
it,
that.
okay.
Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is materials, ordering, and cataloging. So again, prior to the new director coming on board, I had taken on some responsibility for logging into our platform with Ingram, our vendor, iPage, in order to approve materials selected to them for purchasing. The certain staff members, they were making selections decisions, but they wanted a member of the board to sign off on final purchasing. I am perfectly happy to relinquish that role to the director as it properly belongs. I just created a user account for her in iPage today. Have you been able to log in?
Yes, it didn't let me verify my second two-factor authentication, but I'm all set and in.
All right.
We're good to go.
Good. The other point is that we did approve a temporary stipend to one staff member to engage in cataloging work until the new director is up to speed on cataloging and either ready to either undertake that herself or delegate it to a trained staff member as necessary, but that provision of a temporary stipend was only until that point, until that particular staff member's services were no longer needed in that capacity. So obviously, it might be too soon to say, but I might ask the director, do you have any sense of how long that will be?
On my end, I'm not sure yet. I have not been able to sit down with, I would like to sit down with a staff member who does it now, just to see the way that they do it, just to, however, our schedules this week, they did not match up, unfortunately. She did say that things were, like, she's comfortable to continue doing it, but I don't believe that we are as backed up as we used to be. So, I'm not sure. Like I said, I just haven't been able to sit down with her to see her full process. My first day, I do believe they had a shipment come in, but she was working on the process. Where she was at in the process was just would not make sense for me to have jumped in at that time, because I would have missed the whole first half of her process, essentially. So we are hoping that a shipment comes in, well, it's the end of today, hopefully next week. We have not had a shipment in a minute, so we're waiting. Hopefully next week we can sit down and I can provide a better estimate on that.
And I think it took Liz a little bit longer to do some of that process because some of the materials ordered weren't, unfortunately, shelf-ready as had been anticipated.
Yes.
And that was a new system that we had,
Yes.
Jessica had brought to us and we really were excited about, but some of this order
Didn't,
follow
yes.
that format.
Yep.
But moving forward, that won't be an issue.
She was
So it
preparing
should
a
go
lot of
faster.
gift wrapping
Yes.
for the way that she explained it, so, but yeah, like I
That's
said,
just plasticizing.
yes, yeah.
Now, the board voted to provide, to inform the city to provide this temporary stipend of $20 an hour to that staff member, but we specified this was a temporary arrangement until the director was ready to take over those duties. I am content to simply say it's up to the director to determine the point at which she can inform the city this staff member's services are no longer needed. But if we want to make that a motion, we can entertain the motion. But I'm content, based on the wording of the motion when we originally agreed to the stipend, to simply say at this point it's the director's call. Okay, good. Any other questions or discussion? All right. Next item of business, we are now under 9, new business.
11.
11, thank you. Get my Roman numerals switched up. I did inquire with the city. The board had certain questions about the pay of our part-time staff members. I passed those questions along to the city and got back to the board with the data, including year of hire, current hourly pay for each of our existing staff members, not counting the one staff member's temporary stipend specifically for cataloging, but just for her quote-unquote regular position as page. Startlingly, Laura Sargent with the city informed me that prior to her arrival, when she started in 2019, so just 4 years ago, when she started in 2019, everybody, regardless of their tenure or the nature of their responsibilities, was making $9 an hour. So there has, if you call the last 4 years recent, there has recently been a significant increase in that, but I still believe it would be prudent to discuss budgeting for the next fiscal year, to discuss the possibility of routine annual raises for the part-time staff members. It's my understanding that because they are part-time, they do not get the standard cost of living increase that full-time city staff members do. So yes, go ahead.
Did we get
Trustee
any
Stomper.
answers to the questions that we had in regards to where that line was? I know we had several listed out,
Mhm.
and I don't recall seeing an email with
I
answers to
have
those.
not had, I would have to go back and make sure I asked the right questions. It's entirely possible certain questions haven't yet been asked. I haven't seen concrete answers about that I recall, but we can certainly get back to the city and ask more concrete questions. Trustee Palladino.
When I talked to city staff, they said only department heads get the cost of living adjustment, and even then, only certain salary department heads get them.
So we don't even know if the full-time city staff see routine annual pay bumps.
Has to be approved by council, I believe, yes.
Okay, well, in our case, we are the masters of our own budget, so our staff's pay bumps is within our authority. So it's definitely something to consider. Trustee
I was just
Hill?
gonna, obviously, I was thinking everyone was at $12 an hour for a period of time, but that was obviously past 2019, and then we did do some pay bumps.
Mhm.
But obviously, minimum wage went up significantly
Yes.
during that time period as well.
Yes.
And then we have a couple staff members that have quite a bit of longevity with us.
Yes.
Who I think have been here 12 years, 13 years.
So, looks like
Heidi and Annette,
Heidi's been
although
with
Annette
us
has
the
had
longest.
some-
She was hired August of 2012. All right.
We're discussing that or not discussing?
Discussing.
Pay bumps or?
I just said, I think it would be a good idea to include that in our discussions when we start discussing the budget for the next fiscal year. So my impression, based on my communications with the city, is if we want to say, yes, they should receive a bump, they should receive either a one-time or regular bump, that's something they would want us to plan for the next fiscal year, not try to stick into this budget, which I understand.
I believe, just like the council, though, we could pass a budget amendment, but it
Sure.
would have to be passed through council again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry,
yes, Trustee Storm.
I would just like, when we have the opportunity to revisit those other questions that we had and just get further clarity on them.
Mhm.
Because there were some, probably not the correct term for this, but accusations made about the way that the business was being handled. And I would like some clarity on why we were being excluded.
Right.
And specifically, remind me, excluded from the staff getting raises, because
So
it was asked for and not given. Is that that's what we're discussing?
specifically, and Josh made a good point about he got some clarity as far as how cost of living raises were given out, that they were given to certain department heads. But it was something that was regarded that a department head in another department was able to gift their
Right.
cost of living to their
Right.
staff. Meanwhile, Jessica was told that she could not do the same for our staff here, and I wanna know the reasoning for that.
And the reasoning, and it's strange because when she provided us that information, she said she was told it wasn't in the budget. But if it was budgeted, if her cost of living increase was budgeted for, and she wanted to gift that to the part-time staff, then obviously it
It
was
was
in
in
the
the
budget.
budget.
Yes, but so, this, I also have questions.
There's quite a bit of confusion around things that are being budgeted for.
Right, and
There was also confusion regarding director's
Yes.
salary.
yes, and frankly, I would not want our director or any department head to feel they had to give away any portion of their salary to help support the staff. Like, even if that's been done in other departments, I wouldn't
Right.
want to arrange our budget such that it was necessary here.
I have a question, just for clarification. Are you saying that since 2019, still the staff is only receiving?
No.
No,
No,
okay,
if you haven't seen those
Okay.
figures yet, yes, everything's gone up since
Okay,
then.
okay.
And if you haven't seen those figures yet, you should be able to get them from city HR, because
Okay.
that falls within your purview.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I do not want you to have to give your raise up to staff. Let me be very clear about that. But I wanna know why our director was not allowed to do that when that is what she wanted to do.
Jessica had assumed that everyone would get that cost of living bump, and then she was told that was not for the part-time staff. And throughout the city, the only part-time staff was some of our staff, and then some of the people that work the recreation, like rough a game through city rec, a lifeguard, or someone that works at
Okay.
concession stands. So a totally different part-time job description. So she quite generously wanted to share some of that with the staff. And she was told that couldn't be handled that way.
I was corrected on the number of part-time staff in the city. There are a few more.
Oh, are there? Okay.
So somebody mentioned that there may be part-time staff, a dial-a-ride driver that is part-time. And
That's
then
true.
if we're looking at overall, we also would have to maybe take into consideration, part-time firefighters. So the number of part-time staff may go up dramatically.
Okay.
I'm still going
Good
to
to know.
range, but I want our staff treated well, I'm sorry.
Will you compose a message, send it to the full board, and then I will pass it along to the city and we'll see if we can get some answers?
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Any other discussion regarding that business? All right. Moving on, item B under new business, we also had questions about our general fund and our investments. So I sent a message to Tina with City Finance when I requested the library financials for October. And I said, we have questions from the board regarding the investments from our general fund. How is that managed? Who decides how much we invest? Who handles those investments? Please let me know whom we should contact for that information. When she replied, she said, the finance department handles investments for the city. Cities must follow Public Act 20 of 1943, which governs the types of investments allowed. We are currently investing the library funds in Michigan Class, all caps CLASS, which is an authorized local government investment pool that has liquidity if needed for library cash flow as well as yield. We evaluate cash needs and invest as needed for each fund. We just received the bulk of our tax season money and would like to invest another $150,000 in Class. Would you like to reduce that amount? So I said, I'll take that to the board. So immediately looking at this, when she says we just received the bulk of our tax season money and would like to invest another $150,000 in Class, I assume she means 150 from our general fund, which is why she's asking us.
Yes, so I also, and I don't know if it's allowed for me to run to my office real quick.
I think it's probably allowed,
Okay,
if you want to.
because I have this same exact sheet, but from today.
Okay,
And I don't know that it's not all that necessarily, but they just moved $150,000 to start gaining that 5% interest.
okay.
And I can go grab that sheet and see if it's reflected somewhere, like if it's changed anywhere or different from this one.
From the checking to investments,
What'd you say?
from the checking to investments?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I think
if
it
you
went,
could,
I
if you
think,
could grab that, that'd be good.
okay.
Yeah, because that's a significant
Just
change
like-
from when we were first sent these numbers. So while the director's getting that, what it sounds like to me is that city finance is just managing our general fund, without letting us know how much they're putting in investments, the nature of those investments. I mean, I don't think we even saw, they started, for some reason, I don't think we even saw this report on the library fund routinely with our meetings until they started sending us this just recently, just for the past couple of meetings. We saw revenues and expenditures, but we didn't see this fund report on a routine basis.
Do you think we just see that in terms of the annual report?
It's certainly possible it was rolled into our annual report, yes. But I do like seeing these in the monthly reports.
Alright.
There we go.
So it looks like, in the fund that you had in the board packet, so
Mhm.
the checking account common at the very top, that total is $258,677.36.
Mhm.
On the one printed from today, that number is $101,664.14. And I can pass this over to you if you wanna have another look at it.
Yeah, sure, why don't you give it to the secretary so she can. And then I assume the number in the investments line went up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. No disappearing numbers or totals.
Okay. I'll give you a minute to record that.
Do we know if this change, why this change happened?
When I met with Tina today, she basically said the only reason that they decided to do it was because of the 5% interest rate. And based on what you just said, did you guys give her the authority or the answer to do that?
No,
Or
no,
she just did that.
All I said is, let's see. I said, we will discuss it at our next meeting. I went so far as to say, I think we're actually interested in potentially investing more, not less, but we'll see. I don't think she took that as a go-ahead because it appears the city went ahead and took that 150 that they said they wanted to take and just put it into investments. So I think the answer to our question is that the city manages our invested funds as they see fit, and they're just taking money out of the general fund and putting it in investments when they deem it prudent. But they're not running it by us first. Yeah. So the total for investments from 181,790.58 went up to 339,100.12, and I'll pass that down.
Are we worried about this? I mean, is
I'm
it?
worried about the authority, but I'm still wondering why $100,000 in a checking account? Because we still have our annual budget and we're under budget even then.
Well, one assumes it's just prudent to keep a substantial amount of cash on hand, so to speak.
But it sounds, from what she said, it sounds like even this has a, what did it say?
Liquidity if
It
needed
has
for
a
library
liquidity,
cash
yeah.
flow as well as yield.
So I don't wanna get
Right.
0.05% on a checking account if we can get.
Yeah.
There's
So the
probably
question
more
is,
to it.
the question, I think what we would like, what we would like clarity on is who's deciding how much to keep in checking, how much to put in investments, and what are the rationales for those decisions? Even if they don't run it by us, I think we'd still like to know what they're doing with our money. Any further discussion or questions on that? Yes, trustee Palladino.
I'll just read 397.205. The governing board has exclusive control of the expenditure of all money collected to the credit of the library fund, the construction, etc. But all money received for the library shall be deposited in the treasury of the city to the credit of the library fund, shall be kept separate and apart from other money of the city and drawn upon by the proper officers of the city upon the properly authenticated vouchers of the library board, which I am assuming is a document that you would submit to them. So, just I'm not sure they have the authority to do that
Mhm.
without our authorization, so I would like to get that cleared up, but I think I support the move.
Right, I mean, it sounds like a good idea. I think for our own peace of mind, we could at least perhaps entertain a motion at a future meeting to delegate to the prudence of the city financial manager how the funds in our general fund are invested, if we don't want to kind of be managing that month over month. But I think we would at least like, for changes of such substance, I think we would at least like to be informed on a regular basis that, hey, we think it would be a good idea to move a certain amount from checking into investments. Could you please introduce a motion at your next meeting to okay that? So I might, I think that's,
Sorry, is this monthly report not the information? You mean informed before that?
informed before they make changes, yes. And not after the fact.
Maybe a council
Yeah,
decades ago
I
delegated this authority.
it's certainly possible, but, I, for example, it could bring it to the attention of the city that, you know, the boards, we believe the board's authority over our finances includes our authority over how much of our fund is in investments. And that we would appreciate, if any move is being made, we would appreciate for that to wait until after a motion is approved at a board meeting, to make such changes.
Those investments aren't locked in for a certain period of time where they're not accessible though.
No.
So there's not an issue with they made this decision and now those funds are in a bond that don't come due for 5 years. And
It did say 1, 2, or 5 year on it though, so I'm wondering if you can only access a percentage of the liquidity during the time. Yeah, 1, 3, 5, and 10 years, and they give different rates. So you might only be able to get a portion of it. It would be, we should form a committee, and you guys should go over there and chat with her.
Yeah, and I would like to see of routine full reports on the performance, on what's allocated where, the performance of that portfolio in each kind of investment, etc. We should definitely be receiving more detailed information about this.
Especially if we're about to double this fund.
Yeah, we're talking about a lot more money right now. So prudentially, how we're gonna steward that is of eminent importance. All right. Do we want to bring forward a motion now to create a budgetary subcommittee to communicate with the city about these matters? Does anyone want to bring forward a motion, or just let it be? What do we think?
Unless you wanna just do it in consultation.
I mean, as the chair could coordinate with the director, and we could just ask the city some questions. You know, because I think at this point, there's no hard decisions to be made. We just need more detail about how this is being done, and maybe just politely say, could you, any further changes, please run it by us. We'd like to approve those at our meetings before substantial changes to the library fund are made. Okay, I think we can just say we'll do that without making a motion out of it, so to speak. Great. All right. Back to my agenda. All right, any further questions or discussion regarding our general fund and investments? Thank you. Seeing none, I bring up meeting dates for 2024 at the request of the staff. This is a very quick thing, but we approve our annual meeting dates at the annual meeting, which is in April. We say when we'll meet for the next year until the next annual meeting. Heidi reached out and said, hey, are you going to continue to meet Thursdays at 5? I want to create the flyers, posters, whatever for the next calendar year, starting in January, because the way it's posted via calendar year rather than year to year from our annual meeting. So because it's a matter for the full board to weigh in on, I think, rather than me just telling her whatever I think, I do think it's safe to say, yeah, just create a sticker saying we're meeting Thursdays at 5 for 2024, and if for whatever reason at the April meeting in 24 we decide to change that, we can make new stickers.
Second Thursday at 5.
So again, that's just something to bring up. It's not a substantial enough matter to require a motion, I think, but I just wanted to run it by everyone before I replied to Heidi and tell her what we all think. Fine? Great, all right, I'll put down, I need to get back to her about that.
Because that'll be on the city website as well as our website, which will be the January to December.
Right, and posted on our doors and so forth, yes. Any further discussion regarding that item? All right. Seeing none, the next is item 12, board comms. What?
We added a meeting, or D.
Oh, yes, forgive me, yes, we added an item of new business, thank you. All right, so trustee Stockford, do you want to lead the discussion there?
So coming from the world of being board ordered, it's fairly standard. Most educational entities, most nonprofits, their boards do have a code of ethics on the book. Looking through several different libraries, board bylaws and things like that, I've seen where they've been included in the bylaws, I've seen where they've just been included as a separate document, but I've seen, again, several libraries that also have a code of ethics for their board. We had discussed it at the last meeting, and so it was just something I was looking into further and wanted to bring to the board's consideration. I do have a copy. This is a general ethics statement that the American Library Association put out. Several of the boards that I looked at, they just took this and put it in their bylaws, word for word. So, obviously, it's not something that we would have to adopt word for word, but I think it's something that is worthy of checking out. Got extra copies if you guys want to see. And worth entertaining.
Did you want to continue with anything else, or shall we open it up to further discussion?
I'm free to open it up. I cannot talk anymore, guys, I'm sorry. I'm free
Yes.
to open up for discussion.
Okay.
And
Discussion from other board members regarding this idea.
I also looked up, just, that's coincidental, but I looked up, what the ALA, one of them called it a duty of care, another one called it a code of ethics. And one of their principles of their ethics was, trustees in the capacity of trust upon them shall observe ethical standards with absolute truth, integrity, and honor. Trustees must avoid situations in which personal interests must be served or financial benefits gained at the expense of the library users, colleagues, or the institution. And that kind of went with my comment before that when I wanted to add personal or political, and some people just wanted to say financial interest was a conflict. But ALA actually does say personal, and then it also said trustees must be prepared to support to the fullest the effect of the libraries in resisting censorship of library materials by groups or individuals. And those were in the ALA's. That was the only thing I looked up on ALA's stand on code of ethics. I think theirs was also longer and was quite similar to this in terms of different bullet points that had those two additional paragraphs. And then they said some people have, like how this one, each board member signed. Some of them had a signed document. Sometimes, like you said, it was in the policies, and sometimes it was a separate document that each board member signed.
so obviously, if we were to adopt something like this, we would have to look at, who is going to be in charge of maintaining this? What is the process going to be if it comes down to somebody feels as though someone is not acting ethically, according to this. So we would have to come up with a process for that, and at whose discretion are we? Some of the terms in here, I will be very honest with the fact that I think some of them are pretty broad, and so I would want to see those terms narrowed down, and not left open to so much interpretation. But in general, the idea of adopting something is something that I am very much in support of.
In addition, page 70, appendix E of our library trustee manual, I've just got the 2022 version, not the 2023 that I passed on to you, George, but it has a whole list of ethics as well, and I think some of these overlap, we could merge the two.
Further discussion from board members? Okay. And Stephanie, just to be clear, you're not seeking a vote on this right now, you're just bringing up the idea.
Bringing up the idea for discussion
Oh,
as of right this moment.
Okay.
I'm making a motion to continue to explore this.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Mhm.
So, making a motion to put this on our plates to continue to explore, but I'm not sure exactly how we should go about that.
My impression, well, they're basically two ways, I think, which is a single board member could undertake the work of doing research and bringing a policy to the board's attention and say, I really think this would be a good idea, here's what I've composed based on my research, what does everybody think? And then they could take that back and workshop it some more, or they could try to get a vote to approve, just like any other policy, or we could appoint a subcommittee to pursue it more formally. I think I'm perfectly happy for anyone to bring the idea to the table more formally, just kind of let us know, hey, here's what I put together. I'd like to bring this up for really seriously looking at and debating at the next meeting, moving towards a motion to formally adopt. So yeah, obviously with such a policy as this, or as with any other policy, any member of the board's free to do research, compose what they would want to see added, and bring it to the board for discussion and potential approval. Any further points or questions about that?
Are you volunteering?
I will volunteer myself.
All right, please do.
Would you like a
Yes.
second person, or is it easier for you with your schedule and family life to just work on it independently, or? What do you take the lead on that?
I'll go through, and then maybe,
Okay.
once we bring it forward, if we wanna do a subcommittee.
Okay.
Sure,
So,
that sounds fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, so I don't think there are any other additions I've forgotten. That concludes new business. Next is item 12, board comments. Any general comments from the board? I'll just lead off with, once again and for the last time, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments from board members? Yes?
I would just like to say, Penny, thank you for bringing that to our attention about the abstaining, and while Josh did that at the last meeting for minutes, I totally understand, if you're not at a meeting, how do you approve the minutes when you weren't there to know if those were accurate? And I just wanna honestly admit, I know I have abstained on occasion, and I think Stephanie did at
I
least
did
once.
at the last
So-
meeting as well.
Apologies to all of us if we misunderstood that. I think, how you reason I should abstain from something I don't agree or disagree, or I don't have enough knowledge to vote on that is a reason to abstain, but I didn't realize that was a violation of is that a city code or a
City charter,
city
code of
charter?
ethics.
So I just want to admit that I was
I
also
even can tell you
guilty of the
exactly
past,
where
if
it's
that's
at.
the case.
Can you?
please
I would
do.
like to look.
Just a minute,
I just want to share that burden if I was also guilty.
Yeah, because I believe Josh and I abstained on the same set of meeting minutes last month.
So I just, yeah.
I would like to, just reiterate that I endeavor to take, excellent minutes, to share to accurately present what is stated. I always make it my policy to type these up at maximum like 4 days after the meeting, so they're still fresh in my mind. I email them to all members of the board and ask for feedback. And I would welcome that feedback sooner than later in future.
Thank you.
It's under the Muni Codes, Organization and Rules for Council, which boards apply, and it's 6.7 section.
Okay. Well, thank you for enlightening us.
All right. Any other comment from members of the board? Going once, twice. All right, our next meeting will be Thursday, December the 14th at 5 p.m. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second? Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.